At the reading of my grandfather's will, the atmosphere was a humid blend of expensive perfume and barely contained greed. The only noise that genuinely cut through the formality was the sound of my parents' laughter, a sharp, dismissive sound, as the lawyer handed my sister, Lyanna, a check for $6.9 million. Then a crisp, mocking $1 bill slid across the mahogany table towards me. My father, Marcus, didn't even meet my eye. "Go earn your own," he stated, his voice flat, a finality that brooked no debate. My mother, Alina, offered a small, self-satisfied smirk. "Some kids just don't measure up," she murmured, a line she must have rehearsed. Lyanna, ever the golden child, simply smoothed her designer skirt and looked away, complicit in the erasure. "I am Julia. In our family, I was the static, the filler, the one who didn't merit a frame for her achievements. I didn't protest or cry. I simply held my silence, a skill I'd perfected since childhood. Invisibility, I learned at 8, isn't about not being seen, it's about being actively overlooked until you cease to matter." Growing up, my world was divided by Lyanna's glittering trophies, debate medals, piano awards, plaques etched in sharp, confident letters, and my single folded county science fair ribbon forgotten on a side table. "Focus on real achievements," my father would say to Lyanna, while to me he'd only assign errands, walking the dog, cleaning the gutters. "You're steady, Julia," he once said, like steadiness was a consolation prize for lacking genius. The only sanctuary was my grandfather, Walter. His voice was slow, patient, and he never asked why I was so quiet. He took me to the lake house, a place that smelled of old wood and the honest scent of water. He taught me to fish with his prized, hand-carved rod, always letting me use the one with his initials. "People pay attention to the wrong things," he'd tell me. "They look at the surface, not the pull underneath." Those afternoons were my education. He wasn't teaching me to fish, he was teaching me to watch, to track the truth in the smallest details, a skill my family deliberately ignored. "Watch long enough," he said, nudging his chin toward a bird on the railing, "and you notice what others miss." The true turning point arrived one winter when my parents hosted a lavish party celebrating yet another one of Lyanna's awards. Carrying a pile of guests' coats to the back room, I overheard my mother's soft, familiar laugh. "Julie is fine," she told a guest. "She doesn't need much." That sentence, devoid of malice, was the verdict. In the Hartman family, needing nothing meant deserving nothing. They weren't cruel, they simply believed the narrative they had constructed about my worth. That night I knew my place, and I realized I would have to choose between remaining in their shadow or stepping into the light Walter had prepared for me. The silence at the will reading shattered only when the lawyer hesitated, picking up a sealed letter marked "For Julia only." My mother's confident smile faltered for the first time. The final letter from Walter was brief and cryptic, "Start where the truth was first bent." It was accompanied by the dollar bill, a key, and a set of financial numbers. I left the lake house before anyone noticed. No dramatic exit, just the soft click of the latch. The sealed envelope on the passenger seat felt heavier than the millions they had claimed. They weren't just overlooking me, they were actively erasing me. And I finally realized they expected me to let them. I drove to a small inn, a place Walter and I once visited. Inside, I laid out the contents of the letter. I was a structural engineer, a profession demanding precision and the ability to trace the integrity of a system. I knew how to find a flaw. I powered on my laptop and began the work. I ran the numbers through archived documents of Walter's old foundation, checking public filings, and mapping a flow of payments that didn't align with the official company timeline. Hours melted away. There was no fury, just the cool clarity of analysis. The truth wasn't buried, it was sitting in plain sight, waiting for someone who wasn't invested in the illusion to actually look. Patterns emerged, a series of payments always just below the review threshold, routed through a shell entity my father once advised. Confirmation, not surprise. I began assembling a timeline of inconsistencies, dates, locations, signatures. No accusations, just facts arranged so cleanly they spoke for themselves. The truth I knew could fight this battle on its own. When the sun set, I took the second item, the key. I recognized it immediately. It belonged to the locked cabinet beneath Walter's study desk, a spot he always touched before leaving the room. I drove back to the lake house, arriving after twilight. Inside, laughter and the clinking of glasses drifted from the living room. They were still talking about investment projections, still hungry. I slipped into Walter's study. The desk lamp cast a soft circle of light. The key clicked cleanly into the lock. Inside were thin binders labeled only by years, notes in Walter's handwriting, and a small, state-of-the-art recording device. I sorted through the binders. Page after page confirmed my findings. My parents' fingerprints on decisions that had systematically stripped Walter of financial control, payments, legal phrasing, advice that systematically undermined his foundation. I scanned every relevant document, backing up digital copies twice. Simple, professional, clean. In the corner of the room, almost invisible, was a camera, blending into the wooden bookshelf. Walter's letter had given me the key. Truth is only effective when the right people see it. The lake house was his system. It had been recording everything, their conversations, their searches, their confidence in their own entitlement. I closed the cabinet, locked it, and stepped back into the hallway. I heard my mother's voice rising crisp and certain. Julia will stay out of this. She never had the mind for complex matters. I paused, unseen. Their voices filled the house, confident in their assumptions. This time I wasn't here to be included. I was here to finish what Walter started. The next morning, the confrontation arrived not with a fight, but with the quiet formality of my grandfather's longtime attorney, Mr. Boone. He entered the house, nodded to me, and placed a folder and the small recording device on the table. My mother's smile tightened. Is this necessary? Boone ignored her, pressing play. The room filled with Walter's voice, steady and unmistakable. If this is being heard, it means the conditions have been met. My father shifted, unnerved. A second click and footage appeared on the small screen. My parents rifling through the study, discarding photos, discussing property values and leverage. This is taken out of context, my mother protested. Another clip showed the financial records. The anomalous payments, the circled numbers from my notebook, my father's initials, my mother's signature on advisory memos. Walter's voice returned, softer. Julia, if you are hearing this, you have already seen what they hoped would never be found. The will reading was not the end, it was the beginning. My mother's composure finally shattered. Julia, stop this, you don't understand how these things work. I remained silent. Mr. Boone slid a set of official documents across the table. These are the final directives. He paused, his gaze sweeping over them. Your father and mother retain the properties assigned to them. Your sister retains her trust. But the remainder of the estate, including the controlling interest in your grandfather's research foundation, transfers to Julia alone. My father surged to his feet. Absolutely not, this can be contested. It can, Boone said calmly. But if contested, every asset defaults in full to the foundation, Walter's stipulation. There is also a clause regarding possible legal review of past advisory work. The room quieted. My mother's breath hitched. I stepped forward and simply placed the small cabinet key onto the table. It made a barely audible sound, yet my mother flinched as if struck. All that's left is acknowledgement, Boone stated, looking at me. I nodded once. No anger, no victory, just the clean click of something falling into place. My parents said nothing because there was nothing left to argue. The reversal wasn't loud, it didn't need to be. I stayed behind, letting the house settle into its new quiet. I walked to the dock, the boards cool under my feet. Walter's words echoed. Still water tells the truth if you know how to listen. For the first time in my life, the quiet felt earned. I sat on the edge, watching the sun lay a thin gold stripe across the water. The silence that followed was not empty. It was the sound of freedom. I had finally finished what he started.